Have you ever read a story on Reddit and realized you know the person in real life? What happened? In my town, a toddler escaped from his daycare and was wandering down the middle of a busy road. He was found by a local worker after hearing multiple people honking as they drove around the kid. I posted to my town subreddit asking what the duck was wrong with our town that no one stopped. I got a beer with another dad and he brought up the story he read on Reddit, which I had posted. I said, hey, that was me, but the conversation just kept going. I don't think he heard. We were telling our dog Walker about this crazy story from Reddit of a guy who was in the big Boston blizzard that had just happened and ran out of this rare drug used to help with organ transplants. And someone on Reddit helped him by giving him some of their same rare organ transplant drug. And he was like, that was me. I'm like 95% sure I stumbled across my manager's Reddit account a couple months ago. There were numerous points in a post I read that lined up perfectly with things he had been talking about at work for a couple of weeks beforehand. And the word use and tone matched his speaking pretty perfectly. Not to mention the account name was fitting. It was super weird reading through the post and having this slow realization that it was him. I didn't mention it to him. This kind of knowledge is too powerful. Technically I don't know for sure, but I have a damn good feeling. About a month or so ago a guy posted a thing saying his girlfriend believes she is a cat. He went on to explain their relationship and all her quirks and whatnot. The more I read the more it sounded like this girl I had a really complicated relationship with some years ago. Everything matched, even her age. At one point she said something about wanting to quit her job and live full time as a cat. And I swear to God this girl I knew once said the same thing to me. The girl I knew even used to meow and mew like a cat. I reached out to OP to see if we lived in the same area, to find out if it was in fact her, because if so I was gonna warn him about the fact that she was very emotional, abusive and manipulative. But he never answered. I'm still fairly certain it's her though. My oldest sister. I asked her if she had a username based off of one of her favorite bands. Specified the album her username referenced. She said duck. How did you find me? Her dog was on the front page of AWW. Never really went through her post history. Sometimes see her commenting on stuff. She gets an automatic upvote. Soon after a wedding where I was in the wedding party and knew the wife way better than I knew the husband. I found the husband on Reddit. He was so wholesome. I knew I liked him and that they were a good match. But that was just an extra layer of being happy for the wife for finding someone like that to be in her life. My Bill once posted to Ater about a fight he had gotten into with my sister. I had heard about the fight earlier from her, and the details in the post history made it obvious it was him. Everyone ganged up on him saying he was the asshole and he was being very argumentative and aggressive with the commenters, which is so unlike him. It was bizarre. I showed the post to my husband and didn't say another word about it to anyone. In the Houston subreddit someone posted a picture of a belly dancer at a Greek restaurant they went to. I think they were there for their anniversary, and they really enjoyed the restaurant food and entertainment. I looked closely at the picture. Turned out I knew the dancer. We had taught at the same charter school about 3 years before. One of her first graders had been allowed by her mother to get ice cream every day before school at 7 AM. Every day she crossed a major thoroughfare in rush hour traffic with her older brother. One day she ran ahead and was hit by a school bus that couldn't stop in time and was killed instantly. My friend was devastated beyond belief and ended up leaving education. There was an AskReddit thread that asked the worst scene emergency responders have come upon. One was about person I went to high school with who was murdered while off at college. Was pretty creepy. Edit. Link to an article. The reverse happened to me. About 2 years ago I was diagnosed with precancerous cells in my cervix, which simply put translates to I didn't have cancer yet but was going to if it wasn't handled. Thank God they found it early. I posted on Reddit for a while during the whole ordeal because I wanted to reach out to others who had gone through the same thing and learn more about the procedures, etc. Anyway, one day a friend came over and randomly asked me about it. Immediately I was confused because I hadn't told anyone about it other than my mom, and so he kind of laughed, kind of apologized, and said he had found my Reddit and read my posts about the whole thing. Like, Even my replies to comments and stuff. Lots of honest and detailed things. I mean, it wasn't a huge deal, but it was a little awkward at the time. I told a story of when I broke my ankle skating and one of the other roller derby girls in my team commented. We used to chat through Reddit a bit as I didn't skate anymore, but then last year she died suddenly in her sleep. I still have her messages and I feel weird seeing all the comments and stuff she made knowing she's gone now. Just sad. Yeah, some idiot that I was seeing briefly years ago kept mentioning Reddit and certain subs, so I started browsing because it sounded interesting. Came across a post that was undoubtedly him. Had his car in it and wording only he'd use. I was just about to text him, "Found your Reddit profile," when I clicked on his username just to find a post complaining about my leg hair and saying that I don't shut up quickly enough when he interrupts me. I shut up real quick when he never heard from me again. I posted snow conditions on popular local trail. Someone commented and said that they are there recently and agreed with my description. It was my husband whom I did the hike with. Saw a screenshot of this tweet and in the photo was this guy I recognized as a customer from the arcade I used to work at. He has no arms. This is relevant. And was decked out in Sonic clothes. I think his t-shirt said something like Sonic for women's rights maybe. Everyone I worked with knew him. He was really nice and amazing at playing Guitar Hero with his feet. All the comments were saying where's his arms and making fun of the Sonic outfit. Made me sad cause he's so nice. Someone posted an ATA a few months ago that seemed strikingly familiar, so I messaged him for a few minutes and learned that he was a customer with whom I'd had a bad experience earlier that day. The events he posted on Reddit had been trimmed so as to uninclude most of his worst moments. I messaged the mods proof and then posted the real story in the comments. The OP was lambasted and for a brief moment I was a minor hero. He was a priest assigned to a parish where I was organist. Every comment he posted reflected our times together. Over lunch, I mentioned, "I see you're on Reddit too." He just smiled and asked, "How did you know?" At that point, we just laughed and became even closer friends. Yo, I saw someone I knew on our roast me and it was so awkward. I started stalking their profile only to find that they posted various memes on depression and how even though they were extremely depressed they were also very determined and wanted to live. It was a mixture of inspiring and depressing since their posts were all over the place. I'm only on Reddit because my ex kept telling me to go on it. I was on the relationship advice page and someone had posted about being in an open relationship with my age F and her age F, saying that he'd dumped one because this girl stopped wanting the open relationship and all he could think about was wanting her back. The other girl being boring and missing his now ex. Well, I'm his now ex and I split with him because I found out he had another girlfriend in another city. This makes me scared as hell that someone is going to find all of my Reddit posts about them. Then go to my account to see that my top comment is a Pirate 6 joke. They'd be so disappointed in me. I got my girlfriend at the time into Kato after discovering the subreddit. Fast forward a few months and we had both lost a bunch of weight. Then she started cheating on me. I found out, contacted the other dude and let him know the situation, and we both walked away from her. She posted on the Kato sub a bit later about how she'd gone through a breakup and was emotion eating and whatever. I started to get a pit in my stomach reading it, and sure enough when I clicked on the pic she'd posted it was her. She wasn't even a regular Reddit user and I'm pretty sure she made that post just for me to see. Yeah. Like 8 weeks ago I found out an old friend of mine had been murdered via an AskReddit thread. I went into a panic and started hitting hella people up to confirm the story and everything lined up. Turns out nobody in the town had known what happened really. Just that she disappeared around 2 years ago. That it hurt. She was the first person I met in that town. Always pleasant to talk with. I made a post and someone found me. I posted on our toastum after I broke up with my boyfriend and the post ended up blowing up. Front page of Reddit. Someone commented a pun based on my ex's last name. Turned out it was his aunt. I was mortified. One of my employees was terrified about coming out as trans. How do I tell my boss I'm turning into a woman? Her post identified her, me, our somewhat conservative workplace. I already knew. I had 4 friends transitions a few years ago. I know the signs. She was given great advice, but I approached her in the end and said, I saw your post on Reddit. It's all good. Would you like a huge box of makeup? I gave her a huge box of makeup and shouted her to her first eyebrow shaping as a good job gift a few years ago. She had such a masculine monobrow originally. I've advocated with her against some conservative discrimination, but it's never been a huge deal. We live in a pretty freewheeling city. TBH. We're cool. She's a great employee. Her eyebrows are still on fleek. One kid from my school posted about his grandma contracting COVID-19 and had been one of the first deaths due to the virus in our town. He mentioned that she had gone to France and other parts of Europe during this time and not followed precautions and instead putting others in dangers by dodging screenings and taking pills to reduce the fever that she had so that she could board the plane back home. Pretty messed up, but I immediately knew who it was. Oh man, the first one of these I get to answer and it's so lame. I sold a baby parrot I hand raised for work to a girl and later saw her post pictures of him in a parrot subreddit. Casually browsing Reddit, I noticed one of my husband's employees had posted to a subreddit I followed. I noticed her because my husband was worried something had happened because she'd never been late and she was a great employee. She'd gone missing from home and work 3 days before. No call, no show. Her mom was panicking. She never came home from work etc. I chatted with her a bit and she started using odd caps in her messages that spelled out help and hurt. I knew something was up. My mom's senses were on red alert. She was in a bad situation with a guy she used to date and didn't feel safe, so she ran. After talking a bit, I told her I'd meet her and help her out. She'd never seen me and didn't know who my husband was until she got in the car and saw him there. She was embarrassed, but we said no worries. Just glad we found her safe. Talking it out with my husband, we were able to convince the director to let her keep her job and we took her home to her mom after she calmed down a bit and cleaned up. I was the opposite. I posted about my now ex-husband and he found it. I talked about his abuse and my fears about leaving with the children. I talked about him gaslighting me and being physically abusive. He called my very Catholic dad to tell him I was considering divorce, which was advised to me by Redditors and my friends. And my dad called me and told me to make the marriage work. Meanwhile, my dad had divorced my mom when I was 4. I said duck this and left his ass. Best thing I ever did and regret 0% of it. Met now husband on Reddit and am happier than ever. Leave that D and find your true happiness, even if it means being alone. Found myself on Trashy a few years ago. It was a wake-up call for me that I needed to seriously mend my ways. Not proud of that moment, but proud of how I've evolved since. Edit. I'm not going to link or share what it was. This was really fun. I started dating a dom attorney in LA who lived by the beach. He was amazing and I had visited his house once at this point. Well, one night I had pretty bad insomnia, so I opened Reddit. 4 links down was a Gonuild story with the title "First Time I Cucked My Boyfriend." Sure, why not? I start reading it, and it's about this chick who had a boyfriend and she wanted to cuck him and record it to send to him. So she visited her attorney duck buddy and described in brutal detail how they had amazing hot sex, recorded it, and sent it to her boyfriend. She described his house in detail, to where it was undeniable she was talking about the guy I was dating. I made the mistake of clicking on her profile to see all of her Gonuild pictures and videos. She was skinnier, prettier, and younger than me. I felt sick. I forwarded him the link. He tried denying it but then said it was him she was talking about. And magically, a few hours later, her profile was disabled. So yeah, duck that night and seeing that story. Yup, I was up browsing Gonuild when what do I see? A tattoo a very good friend of mine got with me. So I realized it was her almost instantly. Decided to message her and told her that I've had feelings for a long time but didn't want to ruin our friendship. Plus she always dated guys and I never had a suspicion that she had any romantic feelings towards me. Well, long story short, after telling her, she asked if I could take a few pictures for her to post. And we ended up having some fun that night, which has led to a 2-year relationship. I read through a story talking about something that happened to me that day. It was uncanny how accurate it was. It's like it was me who wrote it. It was my alternate account. Using my old account, and I'm going to be vague here, because I just have this feeling that the person I'm talking about will come across this post. A few years ago, I met a sibling that for complicated reasons, I hadn't met until adulthood. We really hit it off and have enjoyed getting to know each other. Several months after we met, I was reading comments deep, like thousands of responses, into an AskReddit post and read an interesting story that was familiar. It was a story this sibling had told me. Checked their post history and there was plenty to confirm that it was the same person. There were even some posts talking about us meeting. Many posts comments that I remembered reading even before we met and had replied to and or upvoted. I never told them that I came across their Reddit account because I didn't want to make them self-conscious. I try not to seek it out because I want to respect their privacy. I will say though, that finding someone's Reddit profile and reading their posts and comments is a good way to learn about someone. It was cool to see that this sibling is as cool as I thought they were. I still find myself going to upvote a comment and then realizing that it was posted by them. I think it's cool that I keep running into them in the huge world of Reddit. I chanced upon my partner's nephew's account last year. He was in his early teens and really socially awkward, and I always had a soft spot for him. I knew he wasn't popular at school and was dealing with some depression issues, and he wrote about that a bit on here. I didn't tell anyone about the account because I didn't want him to lose the privacy of this kind of outlet, but I checked it every now and then to make sure he was okay. I've seen young people get quite candid about loneliness and depression on here, and I wanted to know that he was safe, at least. X posted in relationship advice about our breakup, how he was sad and wanted to get back together, that he still missed me, etc. Didn't mention the part where he cheated on me. I used to be a player ultimate frisbee on a college team, the captain of that team. A guy that I knew pretty well who went on to play professionally, died in a car crash. His death was pretty well covered in the sports subreddits and a lot of people I haven't talked to in years showed up pay their respects. I'm a graduate student entering my last year of work. My thesis chair and advisor, with whom I'm pretty close, has a sports card collecting hobby. It turns out, it's not just a hobby. I saw a collection of cards I recognized from their house and turns out it's more than a few cards and some protective sleeves. It's a $20 K plus empire of basketball cards that span the history of the sport. We laugh about it. Back in college, someone found a post on Twox chromosomes from a girl that ran in our circle. It was describing a party we were all at from her POV. In the story, her ex was pining after her after months apart. One of our friends was over 6 feet tall and devilishly handsome. She rejected a lesbian that was making a move on her, and then hooked up with the hottest guy at the party. In reality, none of those things happened and she was just a loser. I roll. Most of her other posts were similar and it was honestly kind of unsettling. I have made about 3 past Reddit accounts that I have posted on. I forgot each of them. I found the stories and was like, oh, that happened to me, only to realize that it is one of my past accounts. A guy who really ducked me over posted about it in an AskReddit about evil acts. I called him out on it. He tried to deny that he was talking about me. I outlined exactly how I could prove he was lying and he then deleted his account. Saw a thumbnail of an article in my city's subreddit. I recognized the person as someone I went to high school with. When I clicked the article he was featured in, it turned out to be about him sexually harassing and exposing himself to a woman on a train, and that they didn't know his identity and he was wanted. When I commented on the post, turns out someone else also knew him and we PM'd each other to confirm if it was actually him or not. He turned himself into police later in the same day. I was acquaintances and Facebook friends with a lesbian who was constantly posting on Facebook about some very specific things. One day I saw a couple of posts on one of the LGBT subreddits from a user who was talking about those same things. I creeped on her post history for a minute and sure enough, she was also active on my town's subreddit. Also saw a couple of her nudes. Felt a little creepy about that, but she has been known to post on Facebook that she'll trade nudes for money or food, so my guess is she wouldn't mind. I never said anything to her about it because we aren't friends. She's just someone whose social circles intersect with mine at times. No need to make it weird. I found a real life friend when he posted a picture of a truck he had just bought. I didn't know it was his, hadn't seen him in a while, but thought that kind of looks like John's driveway. Sure enough, John was part of his username. I stalked his other posts and they were mostly about his sneaker collection, coding stuff, and a really wholesome post about how much his stepson means to him. What a great guy. I need to call him. The other way around for me, I posted a comment about a friend of my nephew. No names or anything, but it was about an injury the kid had sustained. Someone the kid knew responded, confirmed the school name and everything. I was somewhat new to Reddit at the time and felt really bad. He had fallen from a tree and sorta impaled through his behind. Poor guy had to go through a lot of surgeries. But from what I know he's doing okay now. The comment was in a light-hearted manner and I still feel awful for it. Me and a mutual buddy ducked with him by posting references that to anyone else would seem random, but that he would recognize as being landmarks he knew. I saw an AMA from a bus driver that worked for a specific bus company and recognized him as a friend of my husband's. He left some things out of his AMA that could have been somewhat interesting, namely being fired from the bus company he worked for and going over to a charter company. One of the buses for the charter company was rentable for parties and had a stripper pole in the back. A few times I saw posts about me. They were not flattering. There's this user that makes these really in-depth comments about a certain academic topic that I love. So, I began to follow that user for a while because they're very interesting. They then posted this picture and I recognized it because they showed it to me on Facebook. I thought there's no way this is them, so I clicked on their profile and after 3 seconds realized that it is in fact them. It turned out that I'd been following them for about a year without realizing. The funny it is that I always wanted to tell them about this Reddit user that comments and posts about the same field as them. In the end, I decided to block their account. They posted personal stuff about their dad, partner, pet, and I thought it'd be best to keep my distance. They were using Reddit as a way to vent about problems and I didn't want to take away their space to do so. The beauty about Reddit is that it's anonymous, so you can post about anything without it coming back to you unless you choose to do so. I didn't tell them because I didn't want them to feel like they needed to ditch their account. It's not like I read something they hadn't told me. Plus, they dealt with a stalker in real life for a long time and I don't want to feel like I was one. Edit. I'm keeping this vague about 6 and the subject in case they can see my comments. Still one step ahead of you. I'm going to go pop some popcorn. I just found my entertainment for the night. It was a story about these Nazis harassing this restaurant patrons and nearby pedestrians. They started in the park across. They were decked out with Nazi gear and were just being total asses. Turned out I work there. I found out from the article first as it was my only day off. I saw a photo of a dog. Thought damn he looks familiar. Turns out he came through the dog rescue I worked for. He was one of approx 1,500 dogs that were rescued adopted while I was there. It was just nice to get a little update and to see he is so happy and healthy these days.